Usually, when we think about moving to a new country, we kind of imagine the border as this big physical gate.
Right, like a literal turnstile or something.
Exactly. You get your paperwork sorted, your visa gets stamped, the heavy iron gate swings open, and you're in.
Yeah,
And you just cross that threshold, and the assumption is that the hard part is over.
which, I mean, historically might have been true for a lot of places.
Yeah, but then you look at Japan's immigration landscape for, 2025 and 2026, and suddenly that gate looks a lot less like a turnstile and, well, a lot more like the velvet rope at the world's most exclusive club.
That is a very accurate way to put it.
Because Japan is absolutely opening its doors, but the bouncers are checking IDs, bank accounts, and tax records closer than ever before.
Oh, absolutely. The scrutiny is just on another level now.
Right. So whether you are a digital nomad, an aspiring startup founder, or someone hoping to live in Japan forever, the rulebook has just been completely rewritten.
Yeah, it really has.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, our mission is to unpack a massive stack of policy updates, legal briefs, and immigration data detailing Japan's sweeping 2025 and 2026 residency overhauls. Okay, let's unpack this.
So what we are looking at across all these policy shifts, it's a fascinating macro trend. For years, the global narrative was that Japan, facing this severe population decline and an aging workforce, just needed to get warm bodies through the door.
Right, just get people in.
Exactly. But these new policies reveal a very deliberate pivot. Japan is shifting away from simple volume. They are now actively filtering for high financial value, deep economic commitment, and absolute flawless legal compliance.
And we're going to guide you through exactly what that looks like on the ground, because the stakes have honestly never been higher. Let's start with how people are actually getting into Japan right now.
It's just step one, right?
Before we even touch the holy grail of permanent residency, we need to look at the newest, most contrasting pathways, which are the digital nomad visa and the J-skip system.
Yeah, those two are perfect examples of this new filtering system in action.
So in 2024, Japan launched this highly anticipated digital nomad visa. And the pitch sounds like a dream, right?
Oh, totally.
You can stay for 6 months, you can work remotely for your overseas company, enjoy the cherry blossoms, the incredible food culture, all of it. But to actually get that visa, the financial barrier is steep.
Very steep.
You have to prove an annual income of 10 million yen, and you also need private health insurance covering 10 million yen in expenses.
Right, and here is the kicker with that one. It is strictly temporary.
Yeah.
You cannot just renew it from within the country. You are legally required to physically leave Japan for 6 consecutive months before you can even reapply.
Wow.
And it offers absolutely zero path to permanent residency.
It really is just an extended tourism pass for high earners, isn't it?
Basically, yes.
Yeah.
The government's logic here is highly calculated. They want to capture the disposable income of remote tech workers without putting any additional strain on their national health insurance system or, local civic infrastructure.
So you're just a guest.
Exactly. You are a guest contributing to the local economy, but the structure of the visa explicitly prevents you from planting roots. Now, contrast that transient approach with the new J-skip system.
Right. Officially called the Special Highly Skilled Professional Visa.
Yeah, and this is where your velvet rope analogy gets really intense.
Yeah, for sure.
It is a totally different tier of immigration. To qualify for J-skip as an employee, you need a master's degree or 10 years of professional experience, plus an annual income of 20 million yen.
That's huge.
And if you're a business owner, it's even higher. You need 5 years of management experience and a massive 40 million yen in income.
Which bypasses the old, notoriously complicated points-based system entirely. But for anyone listening who isn't familiar with that old system, how big of a deal is that bypass?
Oh, it is monumental. Under the standard highly skilled professional route, applicants have to scrape together 80 points to get on the fast track.
And that's not easy.
Yeah,
Right.
it's not.
No.
At all. Getting 80 points is a grueling multi-year project. It usually requires holding multiple advanced degrees from top-tier global universities, passing the highest level of the Japanese language proficiency test, securing patents, and logging years of service at a Japanese firm.
Just a massive grind.
A total grind. J-skip effectively says, forget all that. If your salary is high enough and your experience is deep enough, we will instantly grant you the equivalent of 80 points on day one.
Which means you can apply for permanent residency after just 1 year in Japan.
Yep.
Not the standard 10 years, one single year. And it comes with literal VIP perks.
Oh yeah, priority lanes at the airport.
Right, priority lanes. Your spouse gets expanded work rights without the usual hour limits, and you are even allowed to bring up to 2 domestic helpers or nannies with you from overseas.
Wild.
It really feels like Japan is building an exclusive fast pass lane for the ultra wealthy while handing everyone else a temporary 6-month guest badge. Our average earner is just being priced out of Japan entirely.
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, Japan isn't pricing out average workers. That is a crucial distinction.
Okay.
They still have massive critical labor shortages in blue-collar sectors like
Yeah.
manufacturing, caregiving, and agriculture. But they're clearly prioritizing high-yield economic contributors for the absolute fastest, most comfortable tracks.
Right, rolling out the red carpet.
Exactly. They want senior executives, highly paid tech talent, and wealthy entrepreneurs to feel like royalty from the moment they step off the plane because those individuals bring immediate outsized tax revenue and corporate knowledge.
So they are actively filtering employees for massive salaries to ensure that high tax revenue. But, you'd think they would want to foster grassroots innovation, right? Like young startups.
Very so.
Actually, they are applying that exact same ruthless financial filter to startup founders.
Ugh.
That brings us to the October 2025 shockwave.
A very apt description for what is happening to the business manager visa.
Yeah, because historically, the business manager visa was actually one of the more accessible routes for foreigners who wanted to build something of their own.
It was, yeah.
You needed to invest 5 million yen, which is roughly 34,000 US dollars, or you could bypass the capital requirement entirely if you just hired 2 full-time employees.
Right.
Thousands of people use this relatively low barrier to open small cafes in Kyoto, boutique IT consultancies in Tokyo, or even run local guest houses. But as of October 2025, that capital requirement is jumping sixfold to an astonishing 30 million yen.
It's a massive jump.
And the ore is gone. Now you must invest 30 million yen and hire at least 1 full-time employee in Japan. Furthermore, the applicant now needs 3 years of management experience or a relevant master's degree.
And we cannot overlook the new compliance mechanism here either.
Oh, right, the business plan.
Yeah, you can no longer just write up an optimistic business plan, print it out, and hand it to an immigration officer. That business plan now has to be professionally audited, reviewed, and signed off by a certified public accountant or a tax accountant in Japan.
Wait, so you need roughly 200,000 US dollars upfront, plus payroll for an employee, plus a licensed accountant's blessing.
Basically, yes.
If I have a brilliant software idea but no capital, am I just locked out? It's like asking an indie filmmaker to show up with a Marvel movie budget just to get permission to use a camera. They are demanding the finish line at the starting line.
It is a massive structural barrier to entry, I'll give you that. But we have to look at the mechanics of why the government felt forced to do this. Recent policy briefs show that only about 4% of current business manager visa holders would actually meet this new 30 million yen threshold.
Wait, really? That is wild. 96% of the people currently running businesses on this visa wouldn't qualify under the new rules.
Because the government concluded the 5 million yen threshold was fundamentally broken and being actively exploited.
Exploited how?
The breaking point happened in July 2025, when authorities in Kanagawa uncovered a massive fraud ring. Brokers were using paper companies to fraudulently obtain visas for clients.
How does that actually work, though? Like, how do you fake a business to immigration?
Well, because the 5 million yen threshold was so low, brokers would temporarily pool money, deposit it into a corporate bank account just long enough to get the company registered and the visa approved, and then immediately withdraw the funds to use for the next client.
Oh, wow. So just cycling the same money around.
Exactly. These were shell companies on shoestring budgets. There was no real economic activity, no local job creation, and certainly no tax revenue generated. They were just buying residency.
I see.
By raising the capital requirement to 30 million yen and requiring a licensed CPA to sign off, the government is essentially neutralizing the brokers. A licensed professional in Japan is not going to risk their career and their accreditation to sign off on a phantom company.
Okay, that makes sense from a fraud prevention standpoint. But what about the legitimate founder, in my analogy? The person with a great idea, the drive to succeed, but absolutely not $250,000 sitting in their checking account.
That is where the government's alternative mechanism comes in, which is the startup visa. They are not trying to kill innovation. They are rerouting it through a very specific pipeline.
Okay, how does that work?
The startup visa has now been expanded nationwide and acts as a bridge. It offers up to a 2-year runway. It allows founders to legally enter Japan, set up their initial operations, network with local regional banks, and pitch to venture capitalists before they ever have to meet that brutal 30 million yen threshold.
So the strategy is come here, prove your concept in the local market, convince Japanese investors to back you, and then once you have secured their capital, you graduate to the business manager visa.
Precisely. The Japanese venture capital climate is notoriously risk-averse. The government's logic is that if your business idea is genuinely viable, you should be able to convince local investors to fund you within 2 years.
And if you can't,
If you cannot secure that funding, they do not want you transitioning to a long-term business visa. They only want well-funded, highly vetted entrepreneurs setting up permanent shop.
okay, so let's say you navigate all of this. You're in. Maybe you're a highly skilled professional. Maybe you successfully scaled your startup and got the VC funding. Or maybe you were just working a standard corporate job in Tokyo
Right.
and you decide you want to stay forever. Getting permanent residency, or PR, is the ultimate goal for most long-term expats. But getting PR is no longer a rubber stamp process. It has become a true gauntlet.
And the first thing applicants have to understand is that the clock doesn't tick the same way for everyone. Not all work visas are created equal when it comes to the PR timeline.
This is a huge trap for people. Let's look at the Specified Skilled Worker, or SSW, visa.
Yeah, that's a big one.
This program was created specifically to bring in blue-collar workers for industries facing severe shortages, like construction, agriculture, and hospitality. But if you are on an SSW Type 1 visa, which maxes out at 5 years, the mechanism of that visa dictates that your time in Japan does not count toward the 10 years of continuous residence you need for PR.
That's right.
You literally cannot get PR on that visa.
Because the SSW Type 1 was explicitly designed by lawmakers to be a rotational, temporary labor force to protect domestic demographics. It doesn't even allow you to bring your family.
Wow.
To get on the PR track, you have to pass a highly specialized exam to transition to an SSW Type 2 visa, which has no upper limit on renewals, or you have to switch to a standard white-collar status like the engineer or humanities visa.
And even when you are on the correct visa track and you finally hit that 10-year mark to become eligible to apply, the waiting game is brutal. The data coming out of Tokyo shows that processing times at the Shinagawa Immigration Center are currently dragging out to 18 to 24 months.
2 years just waiting for an answer. And the reason for that backlog is the unprecedented level of scrutiny being applied to every single applicant, driven largely by the 2026 PR rule overhauls.
Let's break those 2026 rules down. Starting in February 2026, you must hold the longest available visa period for your specific status just to be allowed to submit an application.
Right, which usually means a 5-year visa.
Yeah. Previously, immigration routinely accepted applicants who only held 3-year visas, but that leniency is being phased out with a transition period ending in March 2027.
And the financial cost of applying is jumping significantly too.
Oh, massively.
The application fee is set to skyrocket from a nominal 10,000 yen to potentially over 200,000 yen once the new legislative bill fully passes.
Yeah.
But frankly, the fee is the absolute least of your worries compared to the mechanics of why applications are actually being rejected.
This is where we need to talk directly to you, the listener. If you are listening to this right now and suddenly sweating because you paid your national health insurance a week late back in 2023, you have a reason to be nervous.
You really do.
Immigration is no longer just looking at whether you are employed today. They are forensically auditing your entire timeline, job hopping multiple times without a clear career progression. That's a red flag. Taking on freelance work that falls even slightly outside the exact parameters of your visa status, red flag.
Yeah, they catch all of that now.
But tax or pension delays are the ultimate application killers. Even if you are fully paid up today, if you were a few weeks late on a mandatory pension payment 3 years ago, their systems will flag it, and it can completely tank your PR application.
Which brings up a strategic dilemma for applicants. If you know your history has a flaw, a late payment, a period of unemployment rushing to apply the moment you hit the 10-year mark is a critical mistake. If you apply with a weak history, you are going to wait 18 months just to receive a rejection letter.
So what does this all mean for the applicant? If I know I messed up a payment 2 years ago, do I just wait longer to apply? Does my case get stronger, or am I just wasting time?
You wait. Rushing is a mistake. You wait, and you build a fortress of compliance.
A fortress of compliance.
Yes. The pre-application phase is where PR is actually won or lost. If you have a late payment from 2 years ago, you need to wait another year or two, ensuring absolutely flawless on-time payments to push that negative mark further back in your history. Furthermore, the days of just dumping a mountain of tax documents on an immigration officer's desk and hoping for the best are over. The quality of your supplementary reason statement is now paramount.
That's the essay you have to write explaining why you want to stay, right?
Correct. But it cannot just be a love letter to Japanese culture. You have to logically storytell your career trajectory. You need to explicitly outline how your specific skills are contributing to the Japanese economy, and you have to clearly demonstrate a deep understanding of and perfect compliance with local laws. You are making a legal argument for your permanence.
Okay, so you do all that. You wait the 10 years, or you take the J-skip fast track. You build the flawless record. You submit the perfect supplementary statement. You wait the 2 agonizing years for processing. You pay the massive new fee. You get permanent residency. You can finally breathe easily, right?
Well, you would think so. But here is the massive curveball in these policy updates. It is a fundamental shift in what the word permanent actually means in Japan.
This is honestly the most shocking detail from all the updates in our stack of sources today. Getting PR no longer means you get to keep it forever.
No, it doesn't.
Japan finalized new revocation guidelines in September 2025, and they go into full enforcement in April 2027. The government now has the legal power to revoke your permanent residency if you intentionally and maliciously fail to pay your taxes or your social insurance premiums.
It's a huge shift.
Here's where it gets really interesting. It's like getting academic tenure at a university, but the university can still fire you if they find out you haven't been paying your parking tickets.
It definitely feels like a constant sword hanging over your head. But we should analyze the actual legal mechanics of this, because the word malicious is carrying a massive amount of legal weight here.
Okay, how so?
This raises an important question. What happens to the human element? What if you lose your job or you get sick? What if the company you work for goes bankrupt or you get into a severe accident, face massive medical bills, and you simply cannot afford your resident tax that month? Are you immediately deported?
No, and that is an important clarification.
Right. The Immigration Services Agency has established a strict 2-part test before they can even consider revocation. First, there must be absolutely no unavoidable circumstances. Sudden illness, natural disasters, unexpected company bankruptcies, those external factors protect you.
That's a relief.
Yeah. And second, the government must prove you have an awareness of your financial obligation, but you are actively choosing to ignore it. They are targeting repeated, chronic delinquency. They are going after individuals withholding large sums of money or people actively using loopholes to hide assets and avoid paying into the national social system.
And even if you do run afoul of the rules, but you have humanitarian reasons for staying. Let's say you have children who were born in Japan and are currently enrolled in the local school system. They aren't going to just put your family on a plane.
No, they won't.
Instead, the guidelines suggest they will issue a disciplinary downgrade. They will strip your permanent resident status and downgrade you to a long-term resident visa.
Which is a brilliant bureaucratic punishment. You get to stay, but you lose the privilege of being left alone.
Yeah.
You are forced to go back to the local immigration office every 1, 3, or 5 years to formally renew your visa, prove your employment, and submit your tax records all over again.
Ouch.
Yeah, they are essentially saying, you broke the social contract of permanence, so we are putting you back under the microscope.
And to fully understand the current political climate, we should also look at a proposal from early 2026. It isn't law yet, but shows exactly where policymakers' heads are at. The ruling LDP party proposed adding a mandatory Japanese language requirement to all PR applications.
Yes, specifically targeting the JLPT N3 or N4 conversational level.
Now, just to be clear, we are imparting this from the sources impartially, but for context, what does that level actually look like?
Passing the N4 level means you can understand basic daily conversations, and N3 means you can generally comprehend newspaper headlines and handle most everyday situations without a translator.
Right. So looking at this strictly from an analytical standpoint, without taking sides in the political debate, this proposal signals a clear shift in how the government views integration. It suggests that lawmakers want permanent residents to be fully functioning, participating members of the local community, not just economic expats living in an English-speaking bubble in central Tokyo.
It all ties back to the core theme we've been unpacking. Every single policy change, the targeted exclusion of the digital nomad visa, the brutal capital hike for the business manager visa, the microscopic scrutiny of the PR timeline, and this new revocation law is about enforcing a highly managed, reciprocal relationship between the immigrant and the state.
Okay, so let's pull all of this together. Japan's message to the world as we move through 2026 is crystal clear. They absolutely welcome global talent. They desperately want your foreign investment and your technical expertise. But the relationship is entirely conditional.
Highly conditional.
They expect impeccable financial records, high upfront capital from business owners, and strict, unwavering adherence to the rules. If you are planning to build a life or a business in Japan, you have to treat your paperwork, your tax history, and your corporate compliance with the utmost seriousness. Because the loopholes are closed and the grace periods are over, what worked 5 years ago to get a visa or secure PR will absolutely get you rejected today.
And looking at the sheer scale of these overhauls leaves us with a fascinating broader question to consider. As populations decline across the developed world, almost every major economy is struggling with how to manage immigration without straining their social safety nets.
Right.
With its incredibly strict financial tracking, its potential language requirements, and this unprecedented new legal ability to revoke permanent status, is Japan actually creating a new global blueprint for how aging nations will handle immigrants in the 21st century? Are we moving away from the traditional ideal of a permanent, unconditional melting pot and moving toward a strictly transactional, heavily monitored contract between a country and the people who want to move there?
That is a wild, slightly intimidating thought to end on. It really brings us right back to that image of the velvet rope. The
Right.
bouncer isn't just checking your ID when you walk in. They're walking around the club, tapping you on the shoulder, and making sure you're still following the dress code hours later. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the world around you, keep learning, and we will catch you next time.